Well, hey Mara. First off, wanted to say thanks for joining us here. For everybody that's on the webinar. We're going to be talking a little bit. This kind of part two of our series, talking about kind of unmanned and what it means differently between different operators. We talked to a panel last time of people who were kind of in that strictly unmanned, and then we know there's tends to be a gambit of what people call that. And so obviously going to kind of delve into a little different version of what remote property management means and how that kind of manifests itself in the storage industry. So, want to start off, Mara, if you wouldn't mind giving us an introduction.
Sure. So I'm Mara Paredes. I'm the director of operations for StorQuest in the William Warren Group. I've been with the company, it'll be now 13 years. And so it's been really exciting. Self-storage has evolved. Our company has evolved. And so, I've worked in several different departments. So I've had kind of a more kind of global aspect of kind of, day-to-day operations. So that's really me in a very high level nutshell.
Sounds good. I had some Austin Powers jokes of me in a nutshell, but I guess I'll save those for another
We'll save
time.
that for after.
Yeah, there you go. And for everybody else, my name is Phil Murphy. I'm the founder and president over at Call Potential, but I'm also an owner operator. Got 19 stores kind of around the Chicagoland area. And so really the whole idea of this is really to be just a conversation. I'll ask some questions, might have some things to add in, but otherwise really just Mara kind of understanding what everything means to StorQuest in terms of RPM. We've called it RPM, remote property management. There's always been this kind of back and forth on what people, whether it's some people might call it unmanned or virtual or various things like that. But due to the kind of the variety of what people of the way people approach it, that's we figure that's kind of the most universal name. So Mario, kind of my first question for you is that StorQuest? What is it? What does remote property management mean?
Sure. So for us, we call it StorQuest Express, and that's what it means for us. And we really take kind of a hybrid approach for kind of remote management, because for us, it's really important to have kind of a very customer-centric environment where we don't want to kind of leave it up to the customer to kind of make all the decisions. We want to be able to kind of help them in the process. There's kind of a different wide range of customers that rent with us, whether it's first-time renters or customers that are serial renters because they need, to store their RVs in the summer. So that's what it is for us. It's hybrid. We have a property manager on site. They're there a limited amount of hours, a limited amount of days, and they're really there to make sure they're cleaning the facility, assisting customers that make appointments to rent in person, or just kind of doing day-to-day tasks.
Sounds great. So what you're seeing is rather than kind of going with, last time we were talking about it with people, it was there is no office. There's people in there. You got the other end of the spectrum, which is kind of the fully managed, everything is on present. And it sounds like you've really kind of adjusted hours and said, we're going to be closed certain days, or we might have restricted hours on certain days in order to kind of lessen cost, but still provide a high level of service.
Correct. Yeah, and that's important for us is customer service ultimately.
What kind of tools or how do you approach that? Is that the call center? Is that kiosk? Is that how does that kind of presence make itself out there when you're not physically open?
So we kind of do different things. We rely really heavily on our technology. So we've developed this proprietary kind of virtual rental center, which we refer to as our VRC. So as soon as a customer kind of goes to the facility and the facility is closed, they have to be kind of allowed into kind of our virtual rental space environment. And so, there's a camera set up where they actually are being seen by one of our call center agents. The call center agent kind of buzzes them in to go into kind of the rental environment. And then they're having instantly live FaceTime interaction with our call center agent, where, one of our agents, Kijo or Peter, comes on live and be like, hi, thank you for visiting us. Like, how can I help you today? And so, it's really kind of that hand-holding process with our customers to make sure they understand that we're here for them, that they're really not, I need space, but I don't know what I need or how even to kind of rent a space. I think that was ultimately what was important for us, is really relying on our technology. And again, we have a 24-hour in-house call center that's, assisting this at all hours of the day.
Okay, and these virtual rental centers, are they across the portfolio at this point? Are they kind of placed strategically? How does that fit in?
So they are strategically placed. We have 26 StorQuest Express facilities. Not all of them have kind of a virtual rental center capabilities, just kind of based on what we developed or even what we've acquired. And so we really rely on kind of smaller, secondary markets, tertiary markets. We typically lean towards kind of smaller unit counts, drive-up facilities, single story, where they don't have to kind of dealing with elevators or hallways or anything like that. And we realized that customers actually really appreciate drive-up units. They want to pull in, park right next to your unit, unload, and then drive away without having to kind of deal with any of the fuss.
Okay. Now, when you're looking at that, you talked about you kind of strategically aiming towards some of the smaller or less complex. Is there a particular size where you find that makes more sense, or it just depends on other factors?
It depends on a lot of factors, but typically the facilities are around, 400 units. For us, that's pretty small. We have, our big bombers that we refer it to that are thousands of units. So, they're on the kind of 400 range.
Okay, great. And then now when you're doing that, so, you've got somebody in the rental center. You also talked about your agents, the call centers that you're using. Talk to me about that. How does a call center play into to that aspect of it?
Right. So, we wouldn't be able to do it without a call center, honestly, just because, again, we want to make sure the customer feels like they're being handheld and kind of the customer service aspect. So our call centers kind of pivoted. We used to not be, 24/7. Now we are, especially since we have kind of such a wide range of facilities. Like we have a StorQuest facility that is actually 100% unmanned in Kapolei in Hawaii. But we've strategically placed it where it's, within a few miles of another facility that can kind of be like, a sister facility that the manager is able to pop over whenever needed. So our call center is able to kind of, set up appointments for our staff and say like, oh, I made an appointment for next Tuesday. Are you able to kind of go there, or even set up appointments when we do have just the standard office hours as well?
Okay, so you really look at the call center and kind of fitting into that, helping schedule things, helping set up managers, and then it sounds like for the Hawaii location, more of a kind of a hub and spoke aspect to handle some of the physical pieces, maintenance and whatnot. Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
Then now, if somebody's going through a rental, what does that look like? Obviously you've got them virtually, or are they completing? I'm assuming you're using e-sign. How does that all kind of piece together?
So in the virtual rental center, they're able to do a full transaction, whether they want to do it while FaceTiming with one of our agents, or they want to do it on their own. They're able to do that in kind of the rentals kind of space environment. They're also able to do that online. And so they're able to kind of complete full transactions online in the middle of the night in their bed, or in the middle of the night while FaceTiming one of our agents and being able to kind of do the full transaction there. So again, we want to be able for the customer to have the same experience, whether they're on site speaking to somebody live, or, at home FaceTiming with an agent, being able to kind of complete that transaction.
Okay, so are you doing over the phone rentals then too?
We are.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then go ahead.
And we can text the lease, we can email the lease, so everything can be done again on the phone without having to see anybody if you don't want to.
Sure, and that's all done through your technology. That you're okay. Great. Now within there, when people are calling into your call center, are you also doing service through there? I guess let me rephrase this a little bit. When calls are coming in, are you segmenting your agents? Are there particular people handling certain stores? Are they handling particular types of callers? How do you approach kind of dividing up that contact center in order to handle the calls that are coming in?
So we do all the above. So we have like specific sales agents that are specifically kind of trained with kind of the virtual rental center, virtual rental center kind of environment, that they're trained, they're always camera ready for kind of a face interaction. We also have other agents that are specifically kind of more focused on customer service. But all the agents are kind of inter-trained. So anybody is able to kind of hop into different seats as needed. And I think that's important kind of with just our call center specifically, is just the constant kind of training and evaluating and being able to kind of pivot very quickly, seamlessly without, any interruptions.
Okay. Yeah. And I know with your call center, you're using Call Potential to kind of run that call center aspect of that. Is that something that's kind of what you're using to facilitate a lot of that, or?
Exactly. And so kind of talking a little bit about that is, with Call Potential, we've been able to kind of, have all transactions, whether it's a rental or a payment, all within one screen. Before, when the call center first opened, we had to kind of juggle different kind of screens and different, technologies. And so with Call Potential, it's made it very seamless. And I think ultimately our goal for the customer is to be able to, call in, complete their transaction quickly. Time is money and time is valuable for everyone. And so that is really what we've relied on, is being able to kind of do this quickly with one system.
What kind of impacts? I mean, I know you've had a call center, but you've had Call Potential with running your call center for a number of years here. What kind of impacts have you seen? Obviously, it sounds like speed is an important thing. Is that something you've been measuring, kind of time on call or access to data, or how does that really kind of impact?
Yes. So we reviewing reports, kind of reviewing the time in queue, and that really kind of helps us gauge, okay, I think we need to hire another agent because we're having very long hold times. So having access to those reports, right now I could log in and see how many, customers are waiting on hold, I think is really important, because then that helps us with staffing, that helps us with scheduling, as well as, hey, I think our volume is upticking, or maybe it's really low right now, and we can kind of not have so many agents on the floor.
Okay, great. And one of the questions that, just in terms of agents, and you're talking about kind of staffing and things like that, Faith has a question here in terms of how many facilities or units do you typically have for a particular agent, to kind of know when should I add one, or how do I kind of staff that? Do you have a rule of thumb, or is it kind of?
It really is based on kind of call volume. So one agent, like our, all-star agents, can take, 2,000 calls, very easily, very quickly. It just depends on what the customer's needs are. If it's a rental, it slightly takes a little bit longer. If they just have a question on their account, those are very quickly. So it's just based on the hold time, and that's really what we gauge. If a customer is on hold, for more than a minute or two, that's too much. And I think that's what our indicator is.
Okay. Are you using callback the callback side of okay. How's that been going for you?
It really well. And I think customers, appreciate that as well. I know I've left messages before with companies and I never hear a call back. So I think that's important for the customers, that they know they're leaving a message, they will receive a call back.
Great. Okay. And then now as far as, obviously with call volumes, and you'd mentioned kind of sometimes service calls versus move-in calls can be very different. Do you kind of separate those out so you can see kind of how long we're spending on service, or do you do anything in terms of prioritization to kind of move particular calls up in kind of queue, or kind of every call coming in is kind of ordered and treated the same? How does that work?
All of our customers are kind of handled in the same order. It is really kind of the first call is kind of the first one answered. Again, we appreciate new customers, but we also appreciate our existing customers as well, because they help keep the lights on. So no, not really prioritizing. Everybody's handled kind of in the same funnel.
Okay, sounds great. We had a question here as well around, the in terms of the remote locations and things like that, the physicality of getting into a unit. How do you handle whether it's locks or access for somebody? If you rent one over the phone, how do they get the unit? they buying a lock? Is there any retail aspect? How does that all kind of come together?
So for our StorQuest Express, we do charge a slightly higher admin fee, which does include the cost of the lock. So when the customer comes to the facility to rent, they reach out to one of our call center agents. The call center agent gives them then a code in order to access their lock. The lock, we take really pride in kind of security. So we make sure the lock is not opened, that there's no lost keys. So then the customer will have access to that lock and then be able to kind of rent without, again, having to speak with anybody on site in person.
Sure. And we do something very similar in terms of we just charge everyone for a lock that rents over the phone, and in your unit is a lock with a breakaway tag, and just kind of let them in that way. That way kind of frees that up. Now we had another question here from Caitlin, looks like, in terms of people that are coming in for an online rental. It sounds like they may require ID or kind of a secondary verification. Are you doing anything to kind of ensure the person you're renting to is the person that they say they are, or what kind of process post phone conversation might they have to do?
Yeah, we exactly are doing that as well. So a customer may be able to move in, after they rent, but we do have kind of a follow-up, like, hey, I need you to come into the facility so I can, confirm your gate code or confirm your ID. And that's kind of another checks and balances that we do as well. So yes, we do require that ID, for any purposes as well.
Okay, great. And then we had another question here, just kind of fielding some of them as they're coming in. So, feel free to throw your questions out there, because I've got plenty lined up, but if you've got ones that you feel are good ones too, throw them out. But Wilson had a question in terms of at what point did StorQuest come to the decision that it was time to insource their call center? Was it a particular number of locations, or what kind of drove that?
So I think our ultimate goal was to have an in-house call center. So I know this exactly because I helped onboard their call center. So we opened our call center, it was in August or September 2009. And at that point we were at, I want to say it was 30 or 40 locations.
You're a little bigger than that now, I hear.
A little bit bigger. And so that was our goal. Our goal was always to be kind of a first touch point call center. So when a customer was to call in, they weren't speaking to their local agent or the local person at the facility. They were speaking to our Santa Monica based call center agent. And the reason for this is, the on-site team is dealing with, walk-in traffic. They're dealing kind of with, cleaning and maintenance and all the above. So we want to make sure that our customers are kind of handled in very strategic kind of level. So that's why we wanted to in-house all of our kind of inbound calls. So when a customer calls, that's routing directly to our call center, and our call center with Call Potential has all the technology and kind of all the information. So it's a very seamless kind of interaction. Before Call Potential, when we first opened in 2009, we would pick up the phone and say, thank you for calling StorQuest. What location are you calling for? Yeah. And, and there was like such a disruption for the customer. Like, what do you mean I'm not calling the facility? Like, who are you? What number did I call? And like, it was just like so much like confusion. And so now it's just, we know all the information, like, oh, thank you for calling StorQuest Hill Street. Like, how can I help you? Oh, you're making a payment. Let me send you the link. It's like very seamless where the customer doesn't even know that, we're located in Santa Monica in Arizona. Like, you think I'm at your local facility.
You're more of an extension of the actual facility team versus kind of that big bad AT&T call center.
Correct.
Kind of thing. Okay, great. No, and that's a kind of a good segue into another question. 2009, I'm assuming in 2022, you have a very different idea of what a call center or contact center is in the last 13 years. How has that changed? Or I'm sure there's some things that are, very core to it, but I'm sure there's some things that may have shifted over the last 13 years, and kind of your idea of how that fits.
So technology has been definitely number one. I know when we first opened, we had 2 screens and that's it. And now it's like we have computers and different monitors, and like now our agents actually have 3 screens because of all the different windows and the camera systems that they're having to monitor, and having to be again camera ready for our virtual rental center. So that's definitely evolved. Like technology has evolved so tremendously. And I think it's, again, our call center agents have more of a sense of ownership because they're just working for StorQuest in our company. They're able to kind of buy into kind of that one team mentality and be able to really, believe in kind of and want to participate in the growth of the company. So I know every time we onboard a facility, like our agents are so excited, like, okay, it's like almost like fresh meat. Like, what can I learn about this facility? Like, how can I make this like even more of like a seamless transition for customers? So I really see kind of just technology as, has completely gone a 180 from what it was before.
Now, in 2009, I'm imagining every call center agent was kind of anchored to their desk. Obviously, with COVID, that world kind of shattered for everyone. How do you break up your call center? Is it all in-house? Is it everyone's remote? Is it some sort of combination of the two? How do you do that?
So we have a new director of our call center. It's Barb. She's actually located in Arizona. And so she's actually going to be instrumental in starting kind of another call center in Arizona. So right now we do have kind of an in-house call center in Santa Monica. So after COVID, we actually everybody came back to their office. And the reason for this is we really believe in kind of that one team mentality and like the way we're able to kind of collaborate better. And I think we talked about this before we started, is like the level of interaction you have versus on Zoom versus in person is completely different. Like you're able to kind of turn around and talk to somebody like, hey, like I had a pretty terrible call. Like, can we talk about it? Can like we like tag team this a little bit? And so we're going to have 2 independent call centers that are going to be working together and all overseen with Barb. And I think that's important for us. It's always been really important having an in-house where we can just walk upstairs, talk to any of the agents, or even like we really believe in like, let's go out to lunch. Let's talk about something, or let's talk about not about work, and let's just, have fun together. And I think that's always been really important for us.
Great. Okay. So kind of going through this a little bit more, when it comes to people, Chris has a question here in terms of the locks. Are you locking your vacant units then too, or I talked about breakaway tags? What does that look like, and then how do you bring more units on to be ready to rent?
So since we do have a manager there, kind of a limited amount, we do have all of our vacant units locked. And the reason for this is really security. We don't want, welcoming strangers on the property that shouldn't be there. That's really for the purpose for it. So we do offer like breakaway tags. We do kind of all the above. We've tested a few different platforms and different technologies as far as kind of like a no key technology or kind of remote access. So we've tested a lot of different things, and we're still kind of ironing out a few things. At one of our StorQuest facilities in Naples, we actually have kind of like a no key mobile technology that's working really well. So again, what we try to do is really test it at one location, really iron out all the bugs, and then before we start deploying across the board.
So when you did no key and some of these other platforms, did you kind of roll that out across all units, or kind of take it as an upgraded unit? I've seen some people take an approach where they'll go out there and they'll say, hey, they're all no key, it's all on demand. And then I've seen other people come in and say, you know what, I'm going to have it here as a smart unit for an upcharge. How did StorQuest decide to tackle that?
So Naples is completely no key. The whole facility is no key. And the reason for this is, we want to be able to have, multiple units that have kind of the same product. If we just have kind of one unit that's like an upcharge, what we've seen is, that customer becomes one of our longest term customers. So there's no one else kind of benefiting from that kind of level of security. And so that's why if we're testing something, we're doing it across the board at a property.
Okay. And then kind of back to, you were talking a little bit about the call centers and having two separate call centers at this point. Jake had written in here in terms of, is there a particular reason you decided to have the separate call centers? Just purely, hey, gives us a broader physical reach, or what benefit are you seeing out of that?
A broader physical reach, and yeah, I think it comes down to we have our in-house call center in Santa Monica. It's become kind of the most expensive call center, I think, in the industry. And so we just wanted to be able to kind of leverage different talent.
Sure.
Fortunately in Santa Monica, we can only bring in certain agents, but we want to definitely experience kind of different agents across the board, especially when we kind of all shut down during COVID. We had agents working in Hawaii and in Kansas and Wyoming. And so I think we really learned a lot by that even though we really appreciate kind of having the in-person kind of face-to-face interactions, we know we can work without having it. So I think that's why we decided we wanted to stand up another office in Arizona so we can kind of bring in different kind of agents that would be able to also support us.
Okay, great. Yeah, it was interesting because I was at the Illinois show, and Joe Margolis, the CEO of Extra Space, was talking about their call center. So at the Illinois show, he was giving our keynote, and he was talking about how they had pre-COVID had all of their agents in Salt Lake, and they were all kind of physically set there. And then now after COVID, they've still got their kind of core group in Utah, but they have spread out throughout. Obviously sometimes I'm sure it's cost, sometimes it's training, sometimes it's just I guess kind of having those different physical presence that are out there. Do you use any of your store team members as well, or is everyone dedicated at the call center aspect?
For now, everyone is dedicated in the call center. We've had kind of a few shifts, from store managers to agents, and it really just based on kind of their needs. Okay,
great. Yeah, because that's one thing we have seen people do is kind of augment with store teams, especially on kind of that hybrid side. But that's great. Another question we had come in. Oh, did we lose Mara? Oh, there she is. Okay. No problem. Feel free to grab some water. As you've been doing all the talking, so I'll talk a little bit for you, so that way you've got a chance to clear your throat. But another question that came in, when it comes to opening your own call center, obviously there's a lot of things that are various challenges, from personnel to technology to just kind of process and operations. What have you found to be the biggest challenge, whether it was in 2009 opening the call center, or 2022, or at what point have you kind of seen that biggest challenge?
Excuse me. The biggest challenge we've seen is number one, security. And really we've been wrestling with kind of different technologies, and I kind of touch a little bit about it. And
do you want to take a minute?
I think so.
Take a minute. I don't think anybody will mind. I'll do some talking in terms of give you a minute. But yeah, no, we've seen a lot of different people when it comes to call centers, and it's interesting because we've launched. I mean, I should know the number of the number of call centers, but it's very interesting the number of different challenges that people come across. Sometimes it's people, sometimes it's understanding technologies, but a lot of times the interesting thing is we have a lot of different conversations, and because we come across so many different ones, kind of a little plug in terms of our customer success team, we really take a consultative approach to sit there and walk them through. Hey, this is what you're coming across. This is what we've seen happen in the past. This is, I was having a conversation with our customer success team the other day, and they were launching a call center for a particular customer, and they were walking towards a cliff. And it's good because we've seen some of those things, and we're able to warn them and tell them, hey, this is something we've seen somebody else do. This is why I would probably avoid that aspect. And then they took our advice and went with it and didn't have to worry about it. But all right, Mara, hopefully I talked long enough to give you a break.
Sorry.
No problem. But so back to your kind of biggest challenges.
So number one is security. I think especially in the pandemic, we've seen kind of an uptick in incidents and kind of security breaches and different things like that. And so we've really had to pivot very quickly and invest a lot of money in kind of different technologies, whether it's our camera system or kind of the no key or our gate system. And so we've really had to kind of very quickly pivot just based on kind of the amount of security issues we've had. Another issue I think we've had is, we talked a little bit about this, is kind of delinquent customers and overlocks and things like that. And so I think the kind of biggest takeaway there is, setting expectation for customers, letting them know that they understand that unfortunately when they are delinquent and overlocked, it will take them a few days in order for them to kind of have access to their unit again. So I think it's very important to kind of set those expectations for customers. I know, well, and again, I think I saw a question as far as auto pay. So our auto pay penetration at our StorQuest Express facilities is very high. And it's because the customer appreciates the convenience of a StorQuest Express self-service model where they rent online, very limited interaction, store their stuff and kind of forget it. And so I think those are the customers that we all really like and appreciate, where they're on auto pay, they have insurance, no questions, no issues, like they store it and forget it.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of those things I know we always kind of every month put out a report showing numbers of auto pays and things like that. And it's one of those where I was talking to one of our other customers, and they had found in a study they had done of thousands of kind of people that had come through auto pay. I think they had a 5-month extension on people that were on auto pay versus those that weren't. And so just kind of that value of getting somebody on there. But kind of going back into that challenge side of it, that's some of the security and physical challenges around COVID. How about when you first launched the call center? What was kind of one of the biggest challenges to getting the call center up and running, and I guess to the level of success it's at?
I think it was training. Like we didn't know what we didn't know. We didn't know what technology we needed at that point. And I think that was like a big thing and kind of a big kind of learning curve for us. Not knowing what technology we needed, not knowing how long a customer was on hold before they spoke to us, not being able to kind of leverage our systems and being able to kind of very hyper focused on kind of our marketing or what our call center is doing, and being able to kind of connect all the systems together. So I think that was like a big thing for us is, connecting all of our team members. So the call center is speaking the same language as our marketing team, speaking the same language as our revenue management team, and we're all kind of in that same environment together. So we all kind of grew together since we were at 30 stores and now we're almost at 300. So I think that was one of the big things is being able to, how do we kind of fold this new vertical into our operations?
Okay, great. And then, so now once you've got that, I had a question here and then I lost where I put it. Oh, as far as other software and things like that you use. So, kind of wanting to understand what software you're using outside of Call Potential, and then what level do they all integrate together? Or I guess how important was integration to the software that you're using to make sure things were functioning right?
So, I mean, I think nowadays everybody has an open API. And so I think that's very important with our systems, like our revenue management team, which we refer to as our data intelligence team. They want to be able to kind of plug into all the systems and being able to kind of plug into the backend API. So, unfortunately at this stage, if we don't have kind of a partnership or kind of a technology system that isn't able to kind of fold into what we're doing, it's, we have to really evaluate and see if this is a technology for us. Everything has to really kind of flow for reporting purposes. Again, we want to make sure we're utilizing everything that we're supposed to be utilizing, and we have the reporting to kind of back it up. So when we partner with even our operating system, we have to make sure that it's going to connect very seamlessly with our systems. And, our systems are being Call Potential and G5 and, our POS. And so all of that is really important. Like there has to be very seamless, again, kind of customer centric and customer focused. Like there has to be kind of no interruptions in kind of the rental cycle.
Yeah. And it's always interesting because, being on the vendor side, but also being on the operator side, we come across a lot of kind of new entrants and a lot of people that are integrated of various things. And, I always kind of advise people, when somebody says they're integrated, you really want to understand what that means to them. Just kind of like
Exactly.
Remote property management can mean very different things to different people. It's also going out there because what does integration mean? Does that mean my units are showing up? Does it mean they can pay, they do rentals, they can do what? How equal is that? But kind of to understand a little bit more towards your question, or As far as integrations, we integrate from Call Potential side with about 9 different PMSs. So if there's one in particular, feel free to reach out. We can always go into the details of that, but that's something we'll kind of leave outside of here. But most everyone we integrate in there are the major aspects. All right, and then kind of what sort of trends or future looking within StorQuest? Are there particular things you're seeing from a remote property management standpoint, from a call center, from your virtual rentals? Where do you see kind of the future going for StorQuest or
I think
the industry?
I think just more technology. I think absolutely just more technology where, a customer is able now rent on their mobile phone, upload an ID, not have to kind of interact with anybody there. Additionally, more cameras, like more kind of digital monitoring, being able to kind of access your facility, without even having to pull open your phone and being able to kind of go through a gate, not have to punch in anything, unlocking your unit virtually. I think all of that is kind of new technology that is going to be coming into the environment and really folding into kind of a StorQuest Express model where it becomes even just more virtual, more remote. But I think ultimately we will probably still keep our employees on site because, there's still kind of cleanliness that needs to be done. And, our store managers become kind of almost like business owners to the property because they are by themselves and they really take a lot of ownership there. So they're, part-time collections agents and part-time, cleaning the facility and part-time renters. So I think that's ultimately what's important and it's going to fold into the technology aspect.
Sure. And then, as we had another question come in here. One of the people on the webinar, so they have an issue with fake rentals through it sounds like through their website. And are you seeing some of that in that virtual side? Are you seeing it over the phone, or are there any steps that are being taken to help curb that kind of thing?
We haven't seen much of that just because we do require payments up front and, our chargebacks are relatively low. I think, industry standard. So we haven't had any issues with that. But what we do to kind of overcome that is every time a rental is done, whether our call center is following back or a store manager is following back and saying, hey, I saw you rented unit 100, thank you so much. Like, when are you planning to physically come in? And so we're still almost doing like the follow-ups, even though we have a transaction and a rental.
Yeah. And it is interesting, kind of going to that question. We've, with 19 stores, we every once in a while, we haven't seen fake rentals. We have seen people go in and place stuff and abandon it, but it's always been kind of one of those, I look at it as I don't want the exception to be the rule. And we have such a low occurrence of that it's kind of one of those, I'll bet we'll have one a year that will come through. And we found that the convenience side of all the rentals and payments and everything that drives much more revenue, much more rentals than that worrying about the one-off that I've had. If you're seeing a high level of that, I mean, it might be something to look at kind of your process online, I guess, but or maybe more location driven in there to kind of going to their question on there. But yeah, at least for our stores, we haven't experienced that either, and really like to base our decision off of what's the rule versus the exception.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, great. Had let's see, last couple questions here. I know if anybody else has other questions, feel free to put them in. As far as unmanned, when you're going in and doing that, do you see kind of unmanned being a long-term aspect within the industry, or do you see it kind of being more of a specific fit in storage?
I think we see it as a specific fit in storage. I don't think it's something we would ever do. I think you just have to have, different kind of systems in place, and it really is kind of operator driven. Even kind of with a limited amount of time that the manager is on site, like we've been able to kind of save so much on payroll as well, and really kind of leverage on the systems we have. So I think, potentially we're looking at unmanned, but there's facilities that are very large with multiple elevators and multiple access points that, at some point they're going to need somebody there to kind of help them. And, I've gotten lost at some of our properties as well, even though there's maps on the wall. So I think you're still always going to need a little bit of human element and human interaction, especially with the larger facilities.
Okay, great. And then I guess one last question here. What advice would you give to operators looking to transition to some sort of hybrid RPM model, remote property management model?
So I would say focus on your technology, and really kind of be able to kind of invest in your security and your systems, and being able to kind of partner with a system that's going to be able to kind of get you to that level. It's a lot of kind of trial and error, and it's a lot of kind of pivoting to what your customers are saying, what your employees are saying. And I think ultimately, it is a large investment in kind of all the different systems that we have. And so I think you have to be able to kind of invest in yourself and kind of the growth you see. Or, if that doesn't, ultimately work out, you can always partner with a different system or a different kind of company that's going to be able to take you to that level as well.
Great. Well, Mara, I just wanted to say thanks for having us on here, for coming on. For everybody that's on, this has been recorded. Then we're also going to be posting it out into our blog as well. It should be coming out soon. But appreciate you walking us through everything and how StorQuest kind of approaches the industry and the market.
Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. Thanks, Mara. Thanks everybody else for hopping on.
Thank you.